Hi, welcome to New Pioneer Presents. I'm Theresa Carbrey, Education Director at New Pioneer Co-op, and today we're going to be featuring a special treat, Hope's Holiday Fruitcake. Now you might think that I have Hope here with me, but actually this is Sarah Jacque, who is a marketing assistant at New Pioneer Co-op, and we're going to make a really good fruitcake.
That's right.
And one of the features of it will be some unusual ingredients. Here we have some dried cherries. So everybody enjoys dried cherries, and they've become everyone's favorite dried fruit here. Also we'll have nuts. These brightly colored little dried fruits are dried cranberries. We call them craisins. We also feature some delicious dates. These have been pitted and then cut. We sell them pitted.
Yep, and they are organic, the dates.
And everything here is from New Pioneer Co-op. We have raisins. We have the blonde Kalmyrna figs that are famous in Fig Newtons. Tell me what you have here in the oranges.
This is candied orange peel. This is something that you can also make using lime peels, lemon peels, grapefruit peels, whatever's your fancy. I chose to use just oranges. As I said, I used organic Valencia oranges, which you need to take the pulp out and then cut them in strips, boil them on the stove for 10 minutes, boil it for about 10 minutes, pour the water off, boil it again. You want to do that from 3 to 5 times, depending on how much bitterness you want to get out of the peel. Then you combine the peel with a syrup of sugar and water, and you boil it down until all the water has dissipated, and you're left with transparent peel that's coated and saturated with sugar. And then if you like, I didn't do this, but you can roll it in powdered sugar and then dry it on racks and store it in your refrigerator until you're ready to use it.
Tastes pretty good how it is.
Yeah, it certainly does.
So this is Hope's Holiday Fruitcake. Tell me who Hope is.
Great. Hope was my grandmother, and this is something that this fruitcake is something that my family has eaten for every year that I can remember, so it's kind of fun to continue the tradition.
And we'll make a fruitcake lover out of some of those doubters too when they see how good this comes out.
That's right.
Okay, so we've got all our ingredients here.
Great. Shall we move over and put it together?
Yes, let's take a look. So we're going to run through some of the steps that are involved in a fruitcake, because making a fruitcake actually involves both good ingredients, careful assembly, proper preparation of the pans. It also involves applying brandy or cognac or some good cooking wine, sherry, to the fruitcake and allowing it to sort of meld those flavors. And then at the end we'll show you how good a fruitcake can look and serve a little slice of it. But the step first, the good ingredients, and second, preparation of the pan. So let's take a look at how one prepares a pan to receive fruitcake batter.
Okay, super. We'll move over here, the cutting board. Here we have a bundt pan, which is what you want to use. It's also possible to use loaf pans if you want to make several small cakes for giving or for parties. I choose to use a bundt pan, and this recipe makes just enough to fill the pan, or you can make 2 large-size loaf pans. Today, as I say, we're using a bundt pan. So what we want to do is we have some butter here, which I melted down. You want to take a paper towel or some wax paper. You want to dip it in the in the butter, and we'll just apply it to the pan. Make sure that it's good and covered. Great. I think that'll do it. And now,
what is this paper you have?
This is parchment paper. You can also use wax paper if you have that around the house. They work equally well. So what we want to do is just press this into the bundt pan.
So the batter will actually go into this paper.
Right, and that's because it's sort of an elegant cake, and you don't want any bits breaking off or anything.
So will we
that's that.
will we paint the inside of this parchment paper?
No, we don't need to. We'll
Okay.
just peel that off when we're done.
So this is ready to go, ready to receive our batter.
Great. We'll set that aside. Why don't you preheat the oven so we're ready
Okay.
to pop the cake in when we're done.
All right.
And I'll move the bowl over here.
Okay, so now we're going to assemble it.
First we need to put all the fruits together in the bowl and mix them up a little bit. Great. Adding the candied peel to start with. And then we'll pour in the cherries.
It's going to be pretty.
It's
I can
really
tell.
quite a beautiful mixture.
Yeah.
And here are the craisins.
So if you have a fondness for one kind of dried fruit over another, why, this is your chance to be creative. What you want to end up with is keeping the poundage or amount that is being served about the same, so that you'll be coming up with about the same amount of dried fruit, but you can vary within.
Absolutely. My grandmother didn't use craisins. That was an addition
Maybe we hadn't invented
that I
them when
made.
she was young.
Probably not. She also didn't use dried sweet cherries. She used the bright red and green cherries that you find in the supermarket. And here we have some figs all cut up. Make sure they all get in there. Okay.
The spices smell wonderful.
Yeah, that nutmeg smells great when you
Yeah,
grate
fresh
it
spices,
fresh.
and one can get really top quality fresh spices, in the bulk department at the co-op.
Absolutely. Here we have pecans and hazelnuts, sometimes called filberts. You can use just pecans or just hazelnuts or nuts of your choice. I used half and half to make 1 full cup of nuts. And now what we want to do is, here I have some flour, 2½ cups of flour, a teaspoon of soda, and a ½ teaspoon of salt, and we're going to pour them into the sifter here, along with the spices.
Here we have the spices.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then we're just going to sift it over the fruit. And that'll do it.
Okay,
Put this
and
aside.
mix this together.
You want to add the dry ingredients to the nuts and fruit first so that they get coated. So we'll mix that up. You can do it with your hands if you want, or you can use a big spoon. Sometimes it's more fun to use your hands. Great, that'll do it. And then I'm going to set this aside, and what we're going to do is we're going to add the sugar and the oil. We're using, this is 4 eggs beaten, and then we're going to use a cup of dark brown sugar and a ½ cup of canola oil. So we'll add the sugar here. There's that. Add it to the egg. You want to make sure that you beat up the sugar and the egg and the oil well, or else you'll be left with lumps of sugar.
Canola is a good light oil.
It is.
Actually a helpful oil too.
It is a healthful oil.
Most of the sweetness will come from the fruit itself.
Absolutely.
Fruit is the #1 ingredient here.
I know. You'll see when we mix it up that it hardly looks like there's any flour or anything besides the fruit. It's really just coated fruit, and then we'll just enough to stick the fruit together. Okay. I want to make sure this is pretty well beaten.
So you make this fruit cake every year now yourself?
I do. It's kind of fun. I've taken over the family tradition. Okay, I think that will be fine. And now what we do, I want to bring this back over here, is we add the sugar and oil and egg mixture alternately with a mixture of honey and molasses to make about a ½ cup. You add, it's about a little over a quarter cup of honey, and then you want to add between 1 and 3 tablespoons of molasses. The molasses that we carry at the co-op is very strong, so you don't want full strength half cup, so that's why we mix it with the honey. So we'll start by adding a little of this sugar and oil and egg mixture. Pour it over the fruit, about half of it. Then we'll add some of this molasses and honey.
Now, if you think that you prefer a lighter version, why one could use less molasses in the honey molasses mix.
Exactly.
Or more, depending.
Exactly. But you do want a little bit for flavoring, so we'd say at least a tablespoon. So now we'll mix this together. And Theresa, if you'd bring over the coffee to pour in. We actually use a little bit of hot coffee for flavoring. Okay, and we'll pour in, this is a half cup of hot coffee. We'll do about half of it now. And then we'll add the rest of the oil, egg, and sugar mixture. And the rest of the honey and molasses mixture. Okay.
So we're going to use brandy in this recipe.
Right.
Brandy and coffee, molasses, lots of interesting flavors will work together here.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that's going to be unusual about this particular fruit cake, I'm not sufficiently familiar, maybe all fruit cakes should be aged in good brandy or cognac, but in this case we're going to use a small amount of the brandy in the actual recipe.
Right, it's about a tablespoon.
And then we're going to take that same product and marinate the baked cake. Wrap it in a cloth. Well, marinate's not the right word. What's the word? Sort of anoint it with some good brandy, and we'll get to that in a minute. But here we have some of the brandy that we'll use, and will go into the recipe, and some we'll use to apply to the baked cake.
Right, and you want to add the brandy with the last of the coffee. So that's the last step. I'm going to make sure that it's well mixed so that all the nuts and the fruit are stuck together with the eggs and flour and the spices.
After the big bowl to do this.
That's right, you do want to start with a good big mixing bowl. Okay,
all right,
we've got the mixture ready. What you could do is you could hold the bowl while I scrape it in. It's quite heavy.
Okay.
It's hard to do both at once. Thank you. I'm going to spoon the mixture into the paper.
All this is going to go in one pan.
Believe it or not, we'll have to press it down a little bit to make it fit. Whoops. There we go. It's a little bit of a long process to get it all in there. But as you can see, it really is just a bunch of fruits and nuts all mixed together. There's really not much holding it together, just enough to make it into a cake.
There will be some leavening from the effects of the soda.
Somewhat, yep, there will.
So we'll see some rising.
Although it's still quite dense, which is what you want.
I was thinking if I was to do this, I might throw in some dried apricots.
That's definitely an alternative. Other things you might try are dried pineapple. That's a nice alternative.
That's an idea. It might give us sort of a light-colored fruit.
Right, right. And even there's all kinds of fruits you could use. Dried mango. I tried to stick to more traditional Christmas holiday time fruits.
Do you think Hope would approve of some of our innovations here to use raisins?
Oh, I think she'd be into it. Okay. Just barely fits. You want to make sure that you have a large bundt pan. Okay, that'll do it, and then I'll press it down in. Thank you, Theresa. Okay, I think it's ready to put in the oven.
Okay, good.
Super. Great.
So to help us share with you the preparation of the fruitcake, we're going to pop this one in the oven and pick up with a fruitcake we've already prepared. Now the next step, as we've mentioned, well, we should discuss maybe how long it have to bake these fruitcakes, because it's quite a while.
Right. If you do it in loaf pans, it should take you about an hour and a half. If you do it in a bundt pan, because there's so much in there, you want to do it for 2.5 hours, either way at 300 degrees.
So that's quite a long time.
So, okay.
Okay.
Would you like to do the honors?
Mm-hmm. Thank
Okay,
you.
great.
So the next step we're going to pick up with is anointing the fruitcake with the brandy. So let's
Right.
get we've turned the fruitcake out of the pan, and now we are going to finish putting on brandy, wrapping it in a cloth, and then we're going to put it in storage. We'll also wrap it in some tin foil too, is that right?
Right. If
Okay.
you want to look at the top, it's quite
So here you
beautiful.
can see that it's leavened somewhat.
Right.
The molasses and coffee, the dark colors coming through to give it a dark color.
And it has a wonderful smell. It'll fill your whole house with spicy, fruity odors. So we'll turn it over.
Here's some of the elements. What have we got here?
Great. We have a bowl that's large enough to put you want to use a white cloth. Unbleached muslin works well. I used a large dish towel that I don't need anymore, or you can even use a cotton, an old cotton bed sheet. So put that all in the bowl. You want to use about a cup to 2 cups of brandy, just enough to soak the cloth well. We'll pour that over. My grandmother used cooking sherry because she didn't want to use anything that could be construed as something one would drink. She was a good New England teetotaler.
Well, I don't think the amount of brandy or cognac that we're going to get out of the fruitcake is going to be that much of a problem.
Right. It will all dissipate in the process of being wrapped. Just have
We're
the
looking
flavor
for the
left.
good flavor. Yes.
Exactly.
Let's just sort of help the flavors mature and blend.
Right. Right.
Oh, it smells pretty
Okay.
good right now.
Here we go.
Okay, so now so do we apply it directly to the fruitcake?
No, you really don't need to. You just want to
You do it to the cloth.
soak
okay?
the cloth quite well.
And it looks quite set.
Great. We'll move the fruitcake onto it. And just kind of pull it all into the center. Make sure that the whole cake is covered with some cloth.
You may smell like brandy yourself by the time you get through this.
It's quite pungent.
Okay, so
Okay.
we've got a plan here.
I'll hold this up if you want to just lay that foil right down here.
Okay.
You want to wrap it. You can either put it in an airtight container or you can wrap it in
Like a
aluminum
tin?
foil, like a tin. I think the best bet is to wrap it in aluminum foil, and then you can even put it in an airtight container. Okay, I'll need another sheet. Thank you.
Now we'll be preparing the fruitcake in this manner, and then you'll want to put it in a cool place. Or where would you store your fruitcake?
Generally, you want to store it in a relatively cool, dark place, like a cupboard. It doesn't have to be that cool, but you don't want it hot either. Just some place that the temperature is not going to change too much.
So what kind of time frame do we want to have our fruitcake in storage?
At least 3 weeks to get that flavoring. But longer is always better. My grandmother usually made it in early to mid-November so that it would be nice and seasoned by Christmas time.
A little more?
And then you can keep it for a long time after.
So that's as a preservative.
Right. Okay, I think we're all set.
Good. Well, quite a little
Great.
surprise to tuck in the cupboard.
That's right. It's fun to open it up later on.
And now,
Put that
because
aside.
we want you to be able to see what this looks like, we're going to do a little time warp and come back. So how long has your fruitcake that you prepared for this show been in storage?
For about a month.
About a month.
So I
Okay, so
would've
now this
preferred
one will go
longer.
into storage.
Okay.
We'll set it over here in the dark, cool place and get out the fruitcake that we prepared to show you what it will look like. Let's
Great.
get that over here now. So it's been sitting with the brandy-soaked cloth wrapped around this molassesy cake.
Yep. And we've begun to unwrap it a little bit.
Look here.
Here our cloths have turned a nice brown. And oh, doesn't that smell good?
Yes. You can see the outlines of the fruit.
Right.
Okay, so let me get the pan.
Okay.
And begin to prepare this.
Super. I'll lift this out.
Okay, so we're going to put a little powdered sugar on top and dress it up.
Great. I'll set this well. We should probably put the powdered sugar on before we put it on our platter. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's good. That way we won't get powdered sugar on the plate.
Right. Okay. Just want to sift a little bit over so it kind of looks like snow. It's rather festive. That should do it. You don't want to do too much. And then we'll
Okay.
present it.
Good.
Terrific.
Very pretty.
Looks beautiful.
All right. And we'll come back and show you how to serve this. Place it on the plate. So now we've got our cake out of the oven. We put on the brandy. We allowed it to meld the flavors, and now we've unwrapped it and dressed it up for our holiday occasion.
Right.
And on top here are some pretty little dried cherries, the dried sweet cherries that are such a characteristic ingredient.
Grandma would have used the bright red candied cherries on the top.
So this is a pretty substantial cake here.
Yeah, sure is.
We'll cut a serving.
You really only need a tiny sliver to enjoy this cake because it's very substantial, as Theresa was saying.
All right, let's put on our cake plate here. Oh,
Beautiful.
very pretty.
All right,
All right, let's do another.
there we go.
And you know, the red of the cranberries doesn't show that much. But it looks and smells very, very good.
Yes.
So here we have Hope's Holiday Fruit Cake. And my guest today has been Sarah Jacques, Administrative Assistant at New Pioneer Co-op. I'm Theresa Carbrey, Education Director at New Pioneer Co-op. Thank you very much for joining us for New Pioneer Presents.
Thank you.